All right, folks, Yishai Fleischer here. And today we're going to be talking about the presidential debate or the debate of the candidates for president. Yesterday, Kamala Harris, vice president of the United States, faced off with Donald Trump, former president of the United States in Philadelphia. And amongst many things that they discussed was the issue of the Israel Arab conflict, the Middle East, the future of this region. So let's analyze the things that were said. We'll also analyze not just what the candidates said, but also how the media framed the issues for them to deal with. So let's get right to it.
Turning now to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's...
Before we even go on to discuss the issue of the answer that Vice President Harris is going to give, look at the framing. It's like, you've said that Israel's got a right to defend itself. What kind of language is that? Why do we even accept that language out there? Israel has a right to defend itself. You have a right to breathe. Of course I have a right to defend myself. That's an inalienable right. It's one that doesn't even need to be spoken of. But the reason that they say Israel's got a right is because of the next part. The but is the part that they say, well, you have a right to defend yourself, but. And the but is international humanitarian law. Listen to those words. It's international. Everybody agrees to it. It's humanitarian. It's human rights. And it's law, right? And maybe it's talking about the laws of war. But the framing is Israel's already running afoul of this thing. We all know, and academics have proven, that Israel's being more cautious with civilian lives than any other army, certainly America in Iraq, America in Afghanistan. But you don't get that, well, America has a right to defend itself, but, right? And so the framing of the question is already like, well, Israel is running afoul of what you've said, even though the numbers may be inflated. Nobody knows if 40,000 is a real number, and nobody knows how many of those are really combatants, a quarter, a half, and that the civilian to fighter ratio been killed is very low relative to other conflicts. But the media is already framing it so that, Kamala Harris could already say, well, Israel's got a right to defend itself, but it's got to shrink. And that's the only shrink away from the conflict. Don't fight it with full force, and shrink away from the land. That's what she's going to get to next. Let's see it.
It's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis, many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed.
So wait a minute. So Israel, again, has a right to defend itself. As I said to you before, whenever you hear Israel has a right to defend itself is a prelude to the but, how we should not defend ourselves too much. Hamas is remember, this is important for a little bit later. Hamas is a terrorist organization, a really bad organization. They did a horrible thing. They did something like a Pearl Harbor type thing. But Israel's fighting of this war, and she's not going to bring any proof, is not okay. The way that we've fought this war, the way we've tried to destroy our enemies is not okay. It's too violent, too big to destroy this terror organization that's supported them by the majority of the Palestinian population living there. Too many people have died in her mind. So we're allowed to fight this war. Hamas is like a Nazi-like organization. They're really bad, but Israel's fighting too much.
And mothers, what we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out.
So I didn't quite understand. Very bad organization, a terrorist organization. We know that the population majority supports it. We're fighting a war to defeat them. But suddenly she pivots to Israel's, has a right to defend itself, but the pivot is, but the war must end. It must end. There must be a ceasefire. There are wars all over the world right now. There are dozens of conflicts all over the world. I think I read in The Economist that Sudan is facing a famine of 2.5 million people by the end of the year may die. But Vice President Harris is saying there must be a ceasefire. Not like, look, there's a war, it's a conflict, there's two sides, they're fighting it out. It's got to end right now. We've got to put a stop to it. But what happens when you put a stop to it? Doesn't that mean that the bad guys that are still around win the war? Because that's what they want to do. They want to win the war. And part of their tactic is to make sure that Israel kills a lot of civilians so that Kamala Harris could say, stop fighting this war so that they can win. Okay, this is the famous international pressure to stop fighting wars so that Israel can be victorious. That is exactly her claim right here, to say to Israel, you can fight it, but it's shrinking our ability to fight it properly. Let's keep going.
And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
Okay, so these are big things. Let's break them down. The first one is that we must have a two-state solution. So Hamas attacks Israel from the land that Israel has already cut out of itself and given over to the PA, and was taken over by Hamas, by the way, by democratic vote of the people that live there. But now, according to VP Harris, the end of this whole conflict is going to be a two-state solution. There's going to be a Palestine in the land of Israel. To me, this is so overtly a victory of Hamas. She's basically saying, Hamas, one, Israel should not be fighting this war. We should find a way to stop the war as soon as possible, stop the war. And the thing that they want, which is to get pieces out of the land of Israel, out of the Jewish state, they should get. She never says that Hamas should not be there. She says, well, they're a terrorist organization, but Israel is really the killing machine here. And the terminus of this whole thing is that there's going to be a two-state solution. And then she says, and this is the audacious part, she says, but Israel could always fight Iran. Now, President Obama and President Biden both released tremendous funds to the Iranian coffers, about $250 billion. And it's known that the Iranian economy has shot back up because of the ridding of the sanctions regime. President Trump is going to talk about that in a minute. But Kamala Harris has the audacity to say to us, Israel's got a right to fight this war to defend itself, but it's got to stop. And it's got to give half of its land away to the enemies, who we all know are Iranian proxies. These are Iranian proxies. Hamas, Hezbollah are Iranian proxies. We know that they get their orders from Iran. And then she has the audacity to say to us, well, we'll always allow Israel to defend itself from Iran. What do you mean? You want Israel to surrender land to Iran. That is what you're saying. So read through the lines there and understand what she's really saying. She's saying, Israel, you got to stop this war. You're not okay. You've killed too many people. Hamas is not going to leave. And we want you to give half the land back. And really, we all know that Iran is the force behind the October 7th massacre, Hamas and Hezbollah. We want you to give land to them. And then I'll pay lip service to say that you could defend yourself from Iran. So much for Kamala Harris's words. I think, in short, I could put it into the following terminology: let Iran win, or make Iran great again, right? Maybe that's really the slogan. Make Iran great again is what Kamala Harris is really saying if you read it between the lines. Let's listen to what presidential hopeful Donald Trump has to say.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never...
Wait a minute, Donald Trump. Hold on one second. Who says that you have to negotiate to get those hostages out? Maybe A, you should just destroy the organization that's holding them. Maybe B, they are casualties of war and we have to fight as though they're not hostages. Maybe C, maybe we should do all kinds of acts. You know, we have a lot of Hamas prisoners. Maybe their circumstances shouldn't be less good. Maybe there's other ways to work to get our hostages back. I don't know. But like the a priori assumption that like, how would you tell Netanyahu to negotiate with Hamas means that I have to accept the Hamas. So notice that the media is the third debater in this, what I call tripartite debates. It's really three debating partners here. So let's see what President Trump has to say.
Started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time...
Wait, so, okay, let's unpack some of this stuff. Does Kamala Harris hate Israel? I don't know. But I know she's surrounded by people that want to shrink Israel and weaken Israel and empower the jihad. What I just said now really is not controvertible. They want to shrink Israel. You heard her say it. It's a two-state solution. She wants to shrink Israel. And she works for people who have empowered the jihad and is surrounded by people who think that Israel is a bad guy, that Palestine should exist on Israeli land. And for that, you know, I don't know if the word hate Israel is true, but she definitely wants to see Israel as a shrunken power. That's for sure. She says she believes that Israel has a right to defend itself, but she's also willing to give large chunks of the land of Israel to the enemies of Israel and empower Iran, as we talked about before. But there is one thing that I do want to say about what President Trump said. I understand that this is a campaign, and I understand that he's trying to get the Jewish vote and the pro-Israel vote and the pro-Israel Christian vote. But your prediction, President Trump, that Israel is not going to exist if Kamala Harris is in power is, I think, far off the mark. Because the Jewish people have existed for the last 3,500 years. We've had 2 commonwealths, and it is God's will and Jewish strength in our destiny to continue to fight for our land. And if we have a partner in the United States, that's fine. We had a partner in Britain at the turn of the 20th century, and they helped a lot. And then they turned on us. So we got rid of them, and we found the French. And the French helped us out, and then we won the 6-Day War, and they didn't want to help us out anymore. We turned to America. America wanted to help us out. If America stops wanting to help Israel out, does that spell the end of Israel? No, it does not. I'm sorry. That prediction is false, incorrect, and not going to be borne out. Israel is going to continue to survive and thrive with or without the United States of America. Do we want to be partners with the great power of the United States? Sure. Do we want to develop stuff together? Are there millions of Americans who love Israel? Love Israel? Absolutely. Do we have an important relationship with these people? Absolutely. Is there a strategic benefit to both countries? Absolutely. But if America becomes an anti-Israel country, that does not mean the end of Israel. I'm sorry to say, it much more likely means that the United States is going to shrink, because powers that turn their back on Israel eventually shrink back to their kind of natural, not superpower size. So here, it's important for me to say that those words are, on the one hand, in my heart, they're ridiculous. But I want to tell them to other people that I want you to know, we have, just like on my screen, you see a split screen there between Harris and Trump. If America goes in the more, if the American administration goes in the more pro-Israel path, that's fine. That's great. Amazing. And if it goes in the anti-Israel path, then Israel will find a new way, a new direction. Maybe itself become the superpower that it's destined to be, at least a spiritual superpower. But I think even more, a military and economic superpower, and certainly a power in this region. So, you know, I chafe at that prediction of Donald Trump's that Israel is going to disappear if Kamala Harris. And I understand he's trying to make a campaign point. I get it. But Israel's not. And he would have gotten more points if he would have said on that stage, I'm a better president for Israel. But if Kamala Harris takes power, then Israel's going to continue to survive and thrive. Maybe with less connection. Maybe we as America are going to be less blessed for blessing Israel, because we won't be blessing Israel as much. But Israel's going to continue to be strong. I think a lot of the pro-Israel folks watching this would have been like, that's somebody that I like, the way he has faith. Not faith in America, but faith in God and faith in providence. Okay, so that's my thoughts on that sentence, but let's keep going and see what else former President Trump has to say on stage there.
In her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it.
This is an important point that President Trump makes, which is, and I think we have to give him credit, he sanctioned Iran and he stopped paying at the UN, started pulling monies out of the United Nations, and started defunding various PA Palestinian causes. And there's no question about it in my mind that what he's saying now is true. He made those countries and those powers and the jihad weaker. I don't know if he's right that Vice President Harris hates the Arabs. I think what he means to say is that she's endangering the region. And that very well may be true, because when you pay into the coffers of jihadist organizations, there's more jihad in this world. And when you stymie them and you choke them and you don't pay into them, then indeed they are suppressed. And jihadism is suppressed in this world. And then the Abraham Accords comes out. And I don't think he mentions the Abraham Accords, which is a real shame, because that should be one of his main clarion calls, which is like, I am the founder of a different way in this region, which is the Abraham Accords for countries that support Israel and want prosperity for this whole region. But I don't know if he got that out. But I want to give credit where credit is due, which is defunding bad guys is good for the world. Let's keep going.
Very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
So that is President Trump and Kamala Harris debating. And what he's saying is, listen, I'll choke the bad guys and I'll make sure that they don't get out of line. And he mentions another thing, which is the Houthis. That's a very interesting point to me. So one of the things that is a wonderment to me, and maybe there's something I don't understand. I can't believe that the international community and the United States have allowed this band of terrorists to slow down and stymie worldwide shipping through the Suez Canal and the Gulf of Suez. And it's just amazing to me. And what he's saying is, I'm going to put a stop to that. And I believe him. I believe that he would. And this is not an Israel thing. This is a global trade thing. This is a cost of living thing. And so that's true. Iran has empowered, through one of its chess pieces, through one of its proxies, the Houthis, to strike at Israel, but also to slow down world trade, world shipping. And it's a kind of sanction on the world. And President Trump promises that he would fight that. That's my thoughts on the debate. And I think there's a lot there for all of us to consider. I want to tell you that the American president is very important for the world and important for Israel. But Israel has to also chart a course which is more independent. And my pro-Israel American friends from Congress and from lay people always say that to me. They're like, Israel's got to chart a course of strength. And also the United States respects that strength. That strength is military, economic, and spiritual. It's also cultural. It's also tourism, but it is military. But tourism and culture comes under economic. It's military, it's economic, and it's spiritual. When Israel is strong in these three spheres, military, economic, and spiritual, then Israel will be a nation that dwells alone in the sense that it doesn't need anything from anybody, and that it's got its own cultural norms and it's got its own laws, but of course can relate to everybody and connect with everybody and bring everybody to enjoy that light from Jerusalem and connect to the God of Israel, and to have that strength that will also suppress and subdue jihadism in this region, which will give decent folks, decent Arabs in this region and other minorities a life, a decent life, from the Copts to the Yazidis, to the Druze, to the Alawites, to the Assyrians, the Kurds, the Iraqi people, North African people, the Saudis, the Yemenites. The suppression of jihad is good for this region. And that is a force that Israel has to bring to the fore. If an American president is with us in that mission, that's a blessing. And if not, Israel will have to find a different path, and it will find that path, because our strength comes in the end from God, from our destiny, and from Jewish determination, stiff-neckedness, if you will, to build up this land and to spread light to this region, and afterwards the Abrahamic region and to the world. God bless you wherever you are. Please feel free to write me an email, yishai@yishaifleischer.com. Let me know what you think about this debate in the comments as well. And please do me a favor and subscribe to Yishai Fleischer TV and our other channels, from Twitter to LinkedIn to Instagram, all those things. Stay connected, stay strong, stay part of the story. Lots of love and lots of blessings, and shalom.